Just a very short video to go with the unboxing of my Ontario Knife Company Bushcraft knife. I made a sheath. It took a whole lot of practice to do it, a lot of trial and error. Got some still pictures to go with it. Here's a small sheath I made to go on this carpenter's hatchet. It is from Cindy's family, but it's arguably the best blade we've got. Got a couple other hatchets I made blades for. There is a welt glued into this sheath and stitched at each end, but this shape is just god awful because I had a lot of trouble. Well, it's a functional sheath. I can pop a couple of holes in there of leather to tie it to the back. That was one practice run. You can see some of the sheaths I cut out from this leather. You can see the reverse pattern, the shadow pattern of the sheath that finally made it was this one. Here's the first one. And after staining with this eco leather dye, I used the Art of Craftsmanship YouTubes. The fellow's name is Dustin. He makes all kinds of sheaths. Makes knives too, that's his primary thing. Making knives out of blades, saw blades, etc., files. But that's the tan he used, and then this is the tan color I ended up with. This sheath came out of this pattern. You see the belt loop at the top. Plenty of room for a fold over, but I actually gave a little more room when I finally got my finished product. The trouble with this sheath was, here's the whole thing. I cut it off in the end. It's pliable, but you can hear how hard this leather gets. The thickness of this leather, you see the welt on this one hasn't been stained yet. The stain hasn't gone through. I just keep the little cotton swab from the leather making kit. Got on Amazon. Use plastic gloves generally, but let's take a look. See if this welt kind of disappears. Yeah. Where the rubber cement is, I used rubber cement. So I'm not sure that this is actually going to be waste. Rubber cement was the way to go for craft bonding. I didn't use contact cement. Use this little wheel to mark my stitches. Do that here on this one. And that would give me plenty of room to go every other. I put my stitches quite far apart. And I don't have the option of a drill press, so I just use my Ryobi, a wood block on the back, and drill down through my marks on each of these. So I ended up with this first attempt at a sheath. Concerned it was a loss because the Ontario knife, Bushcraft knife, would only go down in this far because I hadn't allowed enough room for it to enter the sheath. But instead of worrying that I lost a complete loss, see the now it would be a belt knife that it doesn't stay in there so good. It would fall out, although it stays pretty good against the welt, but for easier access that would be it's a good sheath. It'd be functional. But I went with a bigger cutout. The sheath, and I sewed in the that's the ferrocerium rod.
Sharpener?
No,
Oh.
it makes sparks.
Oh, okay.
I won't make any here in the house, but I
see what you mean.
pull on the spine of the knife.
Gotcha. You don't have to show me.
Okay. So I do have a holder for that. This is the black Gorilla Tape wound around this ferrocerium rod to keep it in the holster. A bright orange so I can find it. But that's the final sheath I came up with. There's a welt sewn in. The stitching's actually drilled a little bit bigger than I needed. But that knife just isn't going to come out of there. So we're walking through the woods. The ferrocerium rod, however, might come out. So I may need to do some stitching right there to tighten up this little loop. But that knife's just not going to come out of there. And it's the handle's protected. I did wet form the sheath when it was finished. I soaked it in water. You don't have to soak it long, 20 seconds. Then I wrapped, I'll have some still pictures of the wrapped knife put in there. I just formed the leather and then used clamps to hold it in place. Also, I don't have a huge workbench, so I got this tall cocktail table that we use. And I used the box to clamp the leather in while I was doing the saddle stitching. Look that up on the YouTube with The Art of Craftsmanship. Dustin does a great job with that. So nothing wrong with the sheath that the knife came with. As a matter of fact, the ferrocerium rod fit in here in this little, it's a pouch that apparently comes for putting a sharpening stone. I've toyed with the idea of maybe putting a slit in the nylon there so I can pull this down over the top of the whole thing. But you know what? Just out to the side, that little pocket makes a nice pocket for the ferrocerium rod. So the Ontario knife, and there's a plastic insert to protect it. That's the welt, a plastic welt and a snap. Not a bad sheath that the Ontario Knife Company sends with their made in the USA knife, made in China. So that's the way I set up the workbench. I just used a 2x4. You see the drill holes where I used a relatively small. There are smaller bits, but this bit made it nice. I did not have to struggle with pulling the needle through with pliers or anything. Just used a series of clamps. The thread in the leather crafting kit that I picked up, very similar to the sinew, artificial sinew, but it's apparently in some kind of a nylon woven thread because it melts, and I melted the ends. So there's my Ontario knife project complete now. Taking the Ontario knife sheath, not a bad sheath, I'd hang on to it, and into this leather that I made. Oh, it's kind of fun. Take your own handmade sheath into the woods. That's not going to come out of there. It's safe, it's protected, but like I said, I'm not too upset with that sheath either. My mistake sheath. That was my mistake. It came out pretty good. And this one, the ferrocerium rod, you know what? It's loosening up. That's good. It was pretty tight. It takes some effort to get it in there. It will loosen up apparently. But that loop is sewn right into the stitching of the sheath. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm happy with the way that Sheath came out with all these like little homemade shop that I got a little shop out in the shed. But the wheel, the cutting wheel, or the marker wheel. There are other ways to figure out how far to put your stitching apart. Actually, there was another wheel that came in this leather kit. The marks come closer together, and I have used that one and just used every other stitch. So there you have it. Enjoy the still pictures. Make your own sheath. Even the mistakes sometimes turn out all right. But here is what I was going for. I'm pleased with it. Actually, this stretch of leather right here, that welt comes on up through there. This is not a fixed blade knife, but it's my little everyday carry. Look at this. Right down into that pocket. I could carry another. It's a double sheath. And I think I may find a fixed blade knife that I like that could just go right in there. As a matter of fact, this knife, for that matter, if I was around camp and wanted these other smaller knife handy, this little Gerber, go right in that little, it's a ready-made sheath. It was fun. It was fun. Revisited my Boy Scout leather making merit badge. Check out the still photos. I guess I just continue to refer you to The Art of Craftsmanship. The fellow's name is Dustin. He's got a nice channel. It'll show you how to do all the leather work. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like.